Welcome to the Tuned In Podcast, a podcast all about music and interviewing artists to find out what connects them to the music they create. Hosted by myself, Nick Brohall. I have a passion for music and want to get artist stories out there to connect people to the thing I love most, music. Welcome everyone to another episode of Tuned In. I am joined today by Matt Lambert. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So you're actually the first guest on this portion of the podcast when I'm talking more about mental health. The first ones were just kind of artists talking about themselves and their music journey.
Okay.
But kind of integrating it with mental health. So I kind of want to just get your story into music and how you're here now and why you love music and want to create music.
Okay. First off, I call myself Conshus. That's my MC name.
Nice.
Say that again, would you ask me? I'm sorry.
It's good. Yeah. So I was just asking, like, what kind of got you to here now, like in music? Like, what made you decide to start making music and start creating?
So I guess mental health would actually be a big part of that. I've always really liked music. I love music. I love just creativity in general, and really gravitated towards hip hop really early in my life. And I like a lot of other genres. You know, I'm a big punk fan and ska punk and alternative, all sorts of things. But when I kind of diagnosed myself as having obsessive compulsive disorder about maybe 7 years ago, it started becoming a way for me to kind of like get all of those things out. So I started writing about OCD. I started writing about, when you're struggling with OCD, they tell you to kind of like give it a name and kind of talk to it as though it's an entity, you know what I mean? So I started writing about the entity that was just felt like it was on my back, wouldn't let me do anything I wanted to do, was clouding my thoughts, with all these negative energy and all this kind of stuff. So I started writing that stuff out, and I'd always liked hip hop, and I'd always liked writing rhymes. So I just started writing rhymes about that. And then as the OCD symptoms kind of fell away, because I got to a really dark place, as that started to fall away, I started writing more about stuff that I was really interested in, political, anti-government stuff, stuff about, dealing with mental illness, stuff about being positive. So that's pretty much, and it's just kind of evolved into now where I write a lot, and I'm, constantly coming up with ways to be creative and ideas, and not too many song ideas. I've written a couple of songs like with a hook and stuff like that, but most of my stuff is just, I'll just be inspired by something, and then I'll just start writing, whatever it is. I'll write a rhyme about it.
That's awesome.
And it really helps. Like when I'll be vibrating, like I'll write something, and then like I'll write something else, and then like it really gets this energy going, and then it's almost like you're like a kid again, where you like, I don't want to go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like I want to stay up and do this. And so it's like one of the first times where I really connected with like, wow, this is something like, it might not be like being a hip hop artist as far as like what I'm supposed to do, but something with poetry and getting a message out and helping people with mental health, I think is the way that I'm supposed to go. So it really connects with me, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, cause what I talk about in a few of the episodes is that I've talked about songs specifically that have helped me, but haven't talked about necessarily the aspect of creating it to make yourself feel better as well, and kind of getting yourself through these, dark times. So when you say that, like, with OCD and stuff like that, is that how you kind of came up with your name and stuff like that, with like Conshus and stuff, like kind of like creating like your thoughts and stuff for the name?
So Conshus comes from like a spiritual awakening I feel like I had. So I read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and it changed the way that I look at the world. Like I can't go back. It's like taking the blue pill or the red pill. Like I can't ever go back to that way that I was before, and that thinking. And it just unlocked this consciousness. It's a lot of people talk about like, when I became conscious, you hear it a lot, and a lot like artists, comedians talk about, coming into consciousness. And I think for a long time, just because, I used a lot of self-medication, smoked a lot of weed, drank a lot. And it was a constant thing every day, all day long. So I wasn't really dealing with like what was going on underlying. And once I stopped doing all of those things, I really got like, it really came on. I was like, okay. So at first I didn't know what was going on, and I was just, my wife helped me a lot on the journey, telling me things I needed to look at, meditating, and I just wasn't ready for a while. The OCD causes a lot of anxiety, and it's a lot of repetitive thoughts and stuff like that. It was really hard for me to meditate. But then I got some help, and once that stuff started to fall away, I started to become more open to things and reading things. And I read that book, man, and the consciousness theme always kept coming up. And I was like, I think I've kind of come into consciousness, even though I've been aware of my life up until that point. I never really saw it the way that it was written and the ideas that he talks about. So I was like, before my name was Constant Flow. It's something I came up back when I was like maybe 20 years old. And I would tell people, yeah, my name's Constant Flow. And they'd be like, man, that sounds like some kind of issue like a lady would have. And I'm like, oh man. I was like, you're not the first person to say that. So I was like, okay, well. And then that name just popped into my mind. And I was like, I spell it Conshus. So I thought that was cool. And I just kind of think it just kind of sums up, I think, where my writing comes from and my style. So,
so it sounds like you've been doing it for a pretty long time. Like you've been going at it a little bit, like with music and writing and things like that. What have you feel like you've developed pretty well, like with your writing skills and your creative process? Like what's your creative process like now compared to when you first started?
Right. So, to be perfectly honest, like I just really started writing, like getting really serious into it, like maybe 3 years ago. Like I really started writing. So I had always kind of written stuff before. I would like freestyle silly stuff with friends and stuff like that. But my wife, for I think my birthday, bought me a couple of different like journaling stuff. So I use one to journal. I use one for like cooking recipes. I like cooking. I used to be a chef. And then one I was specifically for writing rhymes. And then it just was like a slow build, and then it was mostly just what any MC writes about, it was kind of a lot of braggadocious stuff, but it was also like stuff, because I'd read that book and it kind of was conscious things. And I started seeing things and I could see patterns and like the way things are. And so I started commenting on those in my rhymes. But the inspiration just comes from, actually lately it's coming from watching things. Like we just watched this documentary on Netflix. It's called Amend, I think, and it's really all about slavery in this country, and it's so moving. You know what I mean? Like the content and the injustice and all that stuff really like stirred me up. So I wrote something. I was watching. Have you seen Wu-Tang Clan documentary of Mics and Men?
I haven't seen that one yet, but that's been on my list.
Yeah, so if you like Wu-Tang, even if you don't, it's a really great story. But just like I'm getting chills right now talking about it. Like just to see like how they came up and the dedication that a lot of them had, and then the fact that they had to step away from something that they knew, like street life, right? To step into something that wasn't guaranteed, but yet they were all so like, they're all nine, they're all verbally gifted. They're all poets. They're all, what's the word I'm looking for? They're all like street orators. You know what I mean? Like they see what there's going on and they translate it into something. And it was just so inspiring to watch their story that I wrote a rhyme about it. You know what I mean? So, and conversely, I just started looking at TikTok, right? I just got on TikTok because I thought it'd be a good way to kind of put stuff out there. And we're starting a clothing line or a t-shirt apparel line and stuff like that. So I was like, it'd be a good way to try to get that out there. And there are so many rappers, man. There's so many people out there that are trying to put themselves out there. It's like when I was growing up in the 90s, hip hop was becoming popular. Like it was, obviously there's, you've got The Message, you go back to like Run DMC, LL Cool J, there's a build there, and then it starts getting more and more popular. You got your MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, it starts getting into the mainstream. But it's not like it is now. It's like saturated. The market is full of hip hop artists, and then in music that's influenced by hip hop artists. So I got on there, man. I'm like, looking at these guys, and they're all typical flows. They're all kind of using a lot of metaphors, double meanings and stuff like that. And so I tried to, I can write like that. My writing style is a little bit different. And I was like kind of getting down on myself, like, man, I don't write like these guys. Like they're really good. Like all these, and then I started thinking like, what are they really saying though? It's a lot of braggadocious stuff, which is fine. That's Jay-Z is one of the, best known for being braggadocious, right? And that's a lot of bravado is a lot of hip hop. But so I started, trying to write rhymes like that too. And I showed one to my wife. She's like, that's not you. You know what I mean? I was like, okay. And what was really cool, do you know who Kid and Play are?
I don't think so.
So Kid and Play was, they were a hip hop group like in the like mid, like probably late 80s, early 90s. There's a hip hop duo. They danced. They made House Party. Ever seen the movie House Party before?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Kid and Play. Those are the guys. So And I was struggling with like, man, these guys are really good. And I kept telling my wife, I was like, I don't even know, like, this is my avenue. Like, and she's like, do you like it? Do you like what you do? Do you like writing? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, that's not you. And so I saw this interview with Kid, and he was like, man, he's like, back when I was, when he was an artist, he's like, people were very individual. If are you familiar with Rakim?
Yeah.
So Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, all these, he's like, they were all different. Like they had a style, but they, and he's like, now, and even though I know there's a lot of hip hop artists now, a lot of people trying to be hip hop artists, like, he's like, there was individuality. He's like, now is like, they all similarly sound the same. And I was like, wow, that's really touched me. I was like, I needed to see this because I feel like I am an individual in what I do, even though there might be people that do style similar and talk about the similar stuff that I do. I feel like I have something that's, unique to what I do. Then it brings me joy. So I had to kind of just push all that, like, oh, I don't know if I'm as good as these guys. And I'm older. I'm 40 years old. A lot of these people look like they're in their 20s and stuff like that. So I had to just kind of go, you know what? I like doing it, and I'm just going to keep doing it. So
yeah. It's got to be about the passion that you
absolutely
want to put into. And it sounds like a lot of inspiration too comes from your wife, which is super awesome that you have that support system around. But musically, you said that you were, growing up with it. Who are some other artists, that kind of like helped inspire you to, kind of do it? Is it just Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, or like you got any other type of people over the years that kind of give you inspiration?
Plenty. So starting with hip hop. So I have a lot of different influences, I think. So Wu-Tang, obviously. Individually, Wu-Tang, Raekwon is one of the better ones. And then, man, I like a lot of like obscure stuff. So A$AP Rock, if you're familiar with A$AP Rock.
Yep.
Big fan of A$AP Rock. I love Run the Jewels.
Oh, yeah.
They actually weren't around in the 90s, but LP was. He had Company Flow. Even Killer Mike was around in the 90s too. Outkast was a big influence. And then, I have like, punk rock influences, the Ramones, the Stooges, ska punk, Real Big Fish. I was a big fan of Real Big Fish, Buck 09, like these. And then Alice in Chains is probably like my favorite band, like maybe even music in general. You know what I mean? So all of those influences, just hearing that music over and over again and listening to it. And then hip hop just touched me in a certain way. I don't know what it is about it. I'm not from an urban setting. You know what I mean? You don't have to be from an urban setting, obviously, to be an MC, but it's really where it generated, it's really where it started. There's something about me that just connects with the beat, the lyrics, the storytelling, whatever it is that they're talking about. I just always connected with it. So whatever style I have is influenced by all those different types of music that I listen to, but hip hop just seemed to be that one that really got me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so you haven't released anything as of yet.
I haven't, no.
But if do you think that when you plan on that, you could probably like hear some of that, those rock or like different type of genres introduced and integrated with your hip hop flow, probably get that kind of vibe when you're creating music? I
think so. I think the stuff that I write about is more it's more like introspective kind of stuff than, like I said, than kind of the bravado kind of thing. And I'll sprinkle stuff in there, with like a line here or there, but most of the stuff that I write about, and I think it comes from like reading lyrics of all sorts of, I mean, Pearl Jam was another huge, I loved Pearl Jam. But like the way that they write, it's very feely stuff, right? Yeah. It's a little more touchy feely than say what hip hop is generally about. But, so yeah, I think so. I think you can kind of see it in what I write.
That's good. That's really good. So kind of like going off a little bit, more in the mental health style, like what's been the hardest thing though about being an artist and trying to write and trying to create, when you're not, necessarily, you're in Idaho, not like a New York City or an LA type thing. What's kind of been like the hardest part for you when you're trying to like get to this journey of being an artist and putting out music? Good question.
So I think one thing definitely is being in Idaho. So it's not considered a hub of hip hop, right? And it's a predominantly white state. Hip hop tends to be more of an urban. I don't want to say anything like that'll. I don't want to say anything weird. So I think that the stigma is mostly like what has really been the hardest thing is the mental health part of being a hip hop artist or someone who's trying to do it. And you talk about mental health. Not a lot of them talk about mental health. I mean, Logic is really the only person I can think of off the top of my head. I know there are other artists. They're just not big. Like no one's ever heard of them. And I've been shown, you know, some of these artists and I'll see it and I'll be like, wow, that's really cool that they put that out there. Tom McDonald is another one. I think I think he talks about mental health and stuff like that. But I think it would just be the stigma, because it's not seen, especially as a male, it's not seen as something that's strong when you admit that you've got stuff that's going on up here. You know what I mean? Mental illness to me is just like, you know, you've got physical ailments. Your mind is ailed as well. You know, you could wake up every morning and you're like, you're tense or you're like not feeling it. You know what I mean? You got to get yourself out of bed and I know that's probably true for a lot of people, but some people just pop right out of bed and they're like ready to go with their day.
Yeah.
Some people don't get out of bed, you know? So, I think it's really the stigma, and I've had to like kind of just go, I don't care, whatever. I'm just going to put it out there, you know? And I feel like the moment that I get some haters is when I know that it's doing something, because if people are going to comment in any type of way on what you're doing, you know that you're invoking something. So I'm just trying to like, what I want to do is connect with people and make them feel something, right? Through the lyrics, I want them to be like, wow, that's dope. Because when I write stuff, I'm like, that's fucking dope, man. Like that's really cool. And I'll go back and read some stuff sometimes and be like, oh, that was kind of weak. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's getting past the stigma of it's not cool to be a guy and like kind of struggle with things and not be hard. Like I don't walk around like mean munged people, and I don't have that type of energy. It feels so much better to be friendly to people and smile. And that's not typical of how males are seen. You know, you're supposed to be kind of tough, and I could be tough if I want to be, but I just don't choose to be that. I don't stick that out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying I slump in my chair and I'm like not confident, but there's a toxic masculinity, I think, that is in a lot of different things, not just hip hop.
Yeah.
But so I'm just trying to bring something different to the table.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the stigma of that, you know, being someone that also, you know, deals with mental health issues and things like that. You know, it's not always seen because it's not something that you can see just by looking at someone like, oh yeah, he's, you know, depressed or he's got anxiety or anything like that. Right. You know, sometimes you can tell, or, you know, and then people will always say, I wish I would have saw the signs, you know, or something like that in worst case scenarios.
Right.
And so kind of going off a little bit, like, for you, do you feel like you're doing better mentally now, like over because of music specifically, like, and the writing processes that you've done to
Absolutely.
Get you this?
100%. Really, so, and my wife could totally tell you this too. I mean, 5-6 years ago, I was a basket case, man. Like I couldn't even hold a job. Like I had so much anxiety and stuff going on, and fear, and just not really knowing like what I was dealing with, you know. And I wasn't using my crutch. My crutch was weed, man. I smoked weed to keep me in a certain state of calm. But doing that, you know, there's an effect of using on a regular basis. For me, I got lazy. I was lazy. I didn't really have a lot of ambition. You know, I just did not take care of myself. So, yeah, mentally like 100 times better, you know, like my day, if I had to work, like I was in kitchens a lot. So before I made the transition to just start working other things, because it was hard for me to work in a kitchen at that point, because I could not get out of my head. And I didn't know at that point, if I would have just started working and getting in, I would have totally been taken away from that. And it'll be there, but I don't have to worry about it now. That's the power of now, you know, being in the present moment. So with that was super powerful to me to know that like, really there's nothing wrong right now. Like we're talking, this is great. You know, the energy's great, and I'm getting to, you know, talk about, I'm able to get stuff out there. So if I would have just known that at that time, I would have been able, but when I learned that, it was super powerful, you know, the power of just this moment right now. There's those things that you think are going to bother you. Well, they'll be there if you know, after you're done with whatever you're doing. So yeah, 100%, man, just totally better. Yeah, absolutely. And I still work on it every day, and I still can get like, I can still get down, like, you know, I still get those days where I'm just like, man, I'm just not feeling it. But you know, it's just one of those things. Like I've learned that it is true that if you just start doing it, whatever it is, like I like to exercise in the morning. If I don't do it, you know, especially if I get on a routine of doing it, man, it really takes me off my game. So you just got to push yourself to do whatever it is that gets you out of that state of mind, because once you start doing it, it'll go away unless you like want to hold on to it. But that's the part of it you can't do. You can't hold on to it. Like I try to never refer to OCD as my OCD. You know what I mean? Because if I own it like that, then it's me. It's not me. It's just something that I deal with, like anxiety. Like, don't ever call it my anxiety. It's anxiety. People have anxiety in general. If you own it, and it becomes a part of you, and then I don't want it to be a part of me. I want it to be something that I deal with, but I have it. Like, I got you on lock. Like, I don't got to worry about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I like that. That's pretty good. I would say pretty good advice too on that aspect on how to kind of manage with those things. Do you have any other advice that you'd give people that are kind of struggling through similar things that you've been through?
Sure. So practice gratitude. You know what I mean? Like every day, like I write down every day, I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I write just something like about, what I hope the day will be, or what I hope to accomplish in the day. And it's super powerful. Like you could even be like, I'm just grateful for this cup of coffee. I'm grateful for this tree. I'm grateful for my car. I mean, once you get on a roll, you can just start naming all sorts of things, because it really helps if you're thinking like you have low self-worth, right? You start saying things that you're grateful for, it like gets the ball rolling. And there could be simple things, but as long as you're like putting out that I'm grateful for these things. Meditation is also a huge thing, quieting your mind. I even sit. So like after I exercise, I'll sit for like 10 minutes and just try. And I'm not successful, but I try to sit in silence to where I don't have any music going. I'm just trying, like I'll be listening I'll focus on the sound of our furnace, right? Or if my wife's in the next room using her rowing machine, I'll try to focus on that sound just to get me out of thinking about things. And then I'll meditate. So meditation, exercise is one thing that I think really and then finding stuff to do, you know what I mean? Like, so TV, I think TV is no TV. Like I would say, get away from watching television. Like watching informative things are really great, but like, I think a lot of people are addicted to television. I know certainly I still am addicted to it. So just with like maybe 4 years ago, I would turn on the TV and have the TV going all day long if I could. At any point in time, if I came home, put the TV on. I grew up with a television in my room from a very young age. I used TV as like a drug. Like it's one of those things like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to get excited about watching television now. Like, and it's not conducive to creativity, and it really doesn't help. Like, just like drinking or taking drugs, like it's not really going to help you get to a point to where you're kind of making progress on your mental health. So I would say instead of doing stuff like that, like find a hobby. For me, I'm teaching myself, forms of dance. I taught myself how to top rock, which is a form of breakdancing. I'm trying to teach myself how to do the backslide right now, the moonwalk, gliding, trying the wave. I'm just trying all these sorts of things. So that I'm not just sitting there like, and it builds on creativity. So once you I'm just kind of breaking that cycle of being addicted to television, because I really feel like I am, because there'll be a point in the day where I'm like, I don't want to do anything now. I just want to zone out. And it's like, the more you do that, I feel like you're stifling your growth of your mind and things that you can accomplish. So pick up a hobby, I would say, would be whatever it is. And people are interested in so many different things. Creativity, yeah. Write something, paint something. Dancing is creative, whatever it is. If you want to start doing a TikTok, thing where you're just doing funny, silly things, like anything to get you out of that realm where you can feel sorry for yourself, and you can start using, mental illness as an excuse not to do things. And then I think you get into you fall into a trap, and that's, you're not going to be happy. So, and something I always tell people is like, you're not going to be able to tell yourself to do it. You just have to do it. Yeah. Because when you're in your mind is like, your mind wants to keep it safe, right? And if you're used to being a depressed person or anxiety, that's where your mind is thinking that you are. It doesn't want you to veer off of that path. No, let's just stay here. Let's wallow in this. So you just have to get into action, because you start telling yourself, okay, you start picturing like, I want to do this. And your mind's like, nah, we don't want to do that. You'll get that. At least I do. I get a kickback. My subconscious is like, nah. So I'm just like, no, I just got to do it. I'm envisioning going out and practicing, doing some dance moves. My mind's like, man, we don't want to do that. You're going to get tired. You're going to be tired. You don't have any energy. I was like, man, just start doing it.
Yeah.
And then once you break out of that, you'll notice you're in this place and you've got energy, you're happy. It really helps. Smiling too. Like just smiling, like you can't help but feel good if you smile, you know what I mean? And if you just sit there and then you smile at other people, and I just did a TikTok post where I said, go up to a stranger today and say, has anybody told you today how awesome you are? somebody did that to me about 2 years ago. I was like in a really awful place, and I was in a job I did not like, and I was having a bad day. And this person came out of nowhere from behind me. Has anybody told you that you're awesome today? And I was like, no. And that changed my day. And I was like, people are good, you know, and we're all connected, because that person felt my energy. You know what I mean? He was in tune, where most people aren't, because they're just so into their own stuff, which is fine. I understand that. But some people are confident and love themselves, but they're in tune with other people too. And this person was, he could just feel my energy. So it's stuff like that, man. Raise other people up, doing stuff for others. That will always, that's one of the things that a lot of them talk about. I like Russell Brand. I like listening to Russell Brand. He's kind of gone into the spiritual thing where he's got a YouTube channel where he talks about just all this sorts of stuff that I'm into. And that's one thing that a lot of them talk about is help somebody else. It'll just take you out of, because when you're in a place, I don't want to say like mental health is like selfish, because it can be though, because you really focus on yourself.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, to break out of and do something for somebody else really helps. Absolutely.
That's really good advice. All of that is really good. Yeah, because these days a lot of it is escapism, trying to get out of your own head. I'm definitely guilty of that with TV, my phone, video games, anything of the sorts, to try to, you know. And then of course, like, one of my getaways is I love when I'm driving to work and stuff like that, and I can listen to music and stuff like that. It's kind of my little getaway and my escape too, and my little happy place. And I think that's really good, because I think a lot of people, like you say, get stuck in that kind of trap of mental health, and then just feeding off of that and like staying in that zone where unfortunately you just get down on yourself, and then you know, you're thinking about yourself and how like your life isn't good. But it does make me feel a lot better too, especially like when it comes time for Christmas, or come time for like things like if I can give to somebody or, you know, make someone feel good. Like, my favorite thing people know me for is that I can't be serious a lot of the time. I like to make jokes all the time, so getting those interactions of people smiling and stuff like that is definitely huge. So I love everything you're saying. So kind of going off that though, so with you know, your writing for mental health and going through this journey, are you planning on releasing music soon? And if so, when can people kind of like get an idea to expect some music from you?
Yeah, so I have a single that we recorded. I want to fix it a little bit, and then I have another one, a song that I wrote. I'm working with a friend of mine. He's got a really great voice, so he's going to sing the hook. One of them's called the first one is called Traveler. The second one's called Overcome. Second one is more about overcoming, you know, the mental health. The first one is more just kind of an abstract rhyme, kind of braggadocious, but more like introspective. But yeah, I mean, man, I'm hoping by at least like the end of March, I can get both of those done. I mean, my friend's pretty on it with like, the hook's really simple and he's got a great voice. So I honestly think, you know, we could probably practice one more time and be in the studio. And then the other song, I already know it. I just know a couple things I want to fix on it, and I would just put those out on all the platforms I could put them out on, you know, Spotify, iTunes, whatever, you know. Not too familiar with all that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm really anxious to do it. I really want to put it out there. I've gotten lots of encouragement from people, and I wish I would get more feedback, you know, because when you're showing somebody something like, hey man, look at this thing I made, you know, and you're standing right next to them, or you like recite to them something that you wrote, it's hard for people to go, yo, that's garbage. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you know them and you work with them and stuff like that. So when I put it out there, I would be happy to get, you know, more feedback. I haven't put too much stuff just out. You know, I put a couple videos out there of me, you know, doing my rhymes over another beat and stuff like that. And I would love to get more feedback in that kind of way, because I feel like that person's not right there in my presence. So like, I would, even if it was negative, like I would want to know, like, what is it that you don't like, or what is it that you do like, you know? So
definitely. And I get that 100%, because with my podcast as well, I'm, you know, and my anxiety of things, of how I deal with things, I always am like, oh no, like I shouldn't put this out. I'm like, I don't know if everyone will like it. I put it out. I got really good feedback on first 4 episodes, and then sometimes part of me wishes I didn't release the last 3, because it was just me by myself kind of talking, and I didn't really like how those eventually turned out. Like I watched them enough times, I was like, I don't know. But although I am grateful, because it helps bring the mental health topic in a lot more, and when we do tours and things like that, you know, people can talk to me about the mental health aspect and and that's how we got connected, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so stay tuned for all the stuff that he has coming out, and thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.